My brother did the unthinkable to his girlfriend. When I reported him, my mom said, "Now I have to deal with legal bills because you couldn't handle watching him." Her words cut deep, but I stayed silent, knowing that when she saw the truth, everything would change. When my little brother was 10, he asked me a question that still haunts me. Why can't you just lie to people if they'll never find out? I was 17, and I brushed it off with a laugh, telling him not to lie before shoving him out of my room. At the time, I didn't think much of it. But looking back, I wonder, was that the moment it all began? A few weeks later, he showed me a bird he had killed, pulling it out of his pocket like it was nothing. That's when I realized, Timmy wasn't just quirky, he was something else entirely. I blamed myself for not telling our mom sooner, but how could I? She was working 2 jobs, 7 days a week, just to keep us afloat. I didn't want to burden her further, so I kept quiet, convinced I could handle it. I bought parenting books, desperate for answers, but nothing prepared me for what came next. At the public pool, I turned my back for just a moment. When I found him again, he was holding a closet door shut. Behind it was a terrified 4-year-old girl. Timmy laughed when I pulled him away. "You should have seen her face," he said, pointing at the girl who was so scared she peed herself. That laughter, it wasn't normal. It was cruel. I tried everything to help him. I worked extra hours to pay for therapy, signed him up for rugby to channel his energy. For a while, it seemed to work. The calls from his teachers stopped. He made friends. I let myself believe we had turned a corner. But then his therapist called, her voice urgent. Timmy had been playing her, telling her exactly what she wanted to hear. He wasn't getting better. He was getting smarter. When Timmy was 14, he introduced me to a girl he claimed to be his girlfriend. Isabella was quiet, sweet, and kind. But one night, I heard her screaming. I ran upstairs and found her pinned down, her clothes torn, tears streaming down her face. Timmy just smirked. That moment changed everything. I kicked him out and drove Isabella home. She was shaking but determined to press charges. When I told my mom, she didn't want to hear it. "I'm working 60 hours a week to keep this family afloat," she snapped. "And now I have to deal with legal bills because you couldn't handle watching your brother?" Her exhaustion was palpable, but so was her denial. That night, I heard her crying in her room. I wanted to comfort her, but what could I say? That her youngest son showed all the signs of a sociopath? That I had failed to protect Isabella? The next morning, Timmy acted like nothing had happened. "She believes in me, you know," he said, smirking over his cereal. I ignored him, grabbed my keys, and left. As I drove, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. Timmy wasn't just troubled, he was dangerous. And I had no idea how much worse it would get. This version adds emotional depth by focusing on the narrator's inner turmoil, the weight of their decisions, and the escalating tension in their relationship with Timmy. It draws the viewer into the story by highlighting key emotional moments and creating a sense of foreboding. I had the day off, but I couldn't sit still. I needed to search without him watching my every move. At the public library, I logged into a computer and scrolled through Timmy's social media. On the surface, everything seemed normal. Photos with friends, rugby matches, typical teenage moments. But something felt off. The same 5 or 6 kids always commented, showering him with praise. He was in the center of every photo, every post meticulously crafted. I saved screenshots, my chest tightening with unease. By 3:45, I was parked at the police station, my heart racing as I stepped inside. Isabella and her parents were already there, along with a woman in a blazer who introduced herself to Detective Morrow. Isabella looked smaller somehow, her makeup gone, her hoodie and jeans hanging loose. But her eyes, they were determined. Detective Morrow led us to a conference room. "The district attorney will review the case," she explained. "If they file charges, there will be a hearing. Because Timmy is a juvenile, the focus will be on rehabilitation, not punishment." Isabella's father leaned forward, his jaw tight. "So he just gets a slap on the wrist?" "Not necessarily. Detective Morrow replied. The judge will consider the severity of the offense, his history, and recommendations from mental health professionals. I felt a strange mix of relief and dread. Timmy needed help, real help, but I also knew this would tear our family apart. There's something else, I said, pulling out my phone. I found these notes on Timmy's phone. He's been tracking how to manipulate people, classmates, teachers, even me and Mom. Detective Morrow's expression darkened as she reviewed the screenshots. This shows premeditation and a pattern of behavior. It's deeply concerning. When the meeting ended, Isabella lingered. Thank you, she said quietly, for believing me, for helping guilt washed over me. I'm so sorry this happened to you. She shook her head. It's not your fault. He fooled everyone. When I got home, Mom was at the kitchen table, her uniform still on, her eyes red-rimmed. The school called, she said, her voice hollow. They've suspended Timmy. His rugby coach called too. He's off the team. I sat across from her. Mom, I know this is hard. Hard, she interrupted, her voice breaking. My 14-year-old son is accused of assault. I could lose my job. And my older son, who I thought I could trust, is helping build a case against him instead of standing by his family. Her words stung, but I didn't back down. Mom, I stand by my family. Timmy did wrong, and it's not the first time he's hurt someone. I told her everything. The bird, the pool incident, the therapist's warnings. With each story, her face crumpled. Why didn't you tell me? She whispered, her hands trembling. You were already carrying so much, I said, guilt gnawing at me. I thought I could handle it. I thought the therapy worked. She buried her face in her hands. What did I do wrong? Nothing, I assured her. Some people are wired differently. It's not your fault. We sat in silence before she finally looked up. What happens now? The next weeks were a blur of tension. Mom hired a lawyer, taking out a loan to cover the costs. Timmy withdrew into himself, spending hours in his room, emerging only for meals. His silence felt heavier than his words ever had. At school, former friends avoided me. Whispers followed me down the halls. Someone spray-painted snitch on my locker, the red letters dripping like blood. One night, I woke to something hitting my window. When I checked outside, there was nothing, but my backpack had been moved, my wallet emptied. I stormed into Timmy's room. Where is it? I demanded. He blinked at me, feigning innocence. Where's what? My money. I know you took it. He shrugged. Search my room if you want. You won't find anything. I searched, but the money was gone. When I returned to my room, I noticed something else. The folder with my evidence was missing. The next day, I installed a simple lock on my bedroom door. It wasn't much, but it gave me a small sense of security. As the hearing approached, Timmy's behavior became more erratic. At times, he seemed like his old self, laughing, joking, helping Mom with chores. But then, without warning, his demeanor would shift. I'd catch him staring into space, his eyes cold and calculating, as if he was planning something. His friends started coming over more often, always watching me, always whispering. 3 days before the hearing, I came home from work to find Mom at the kitchen table, her face pale and drawn, a letter clutched in her trembling hands. It was from her boss. She had been let go due to excessive absences and declining performance. I can't believe this is happening, she whispered, her voice breaking. How are we going to pay the rent? The lawyer? I sat down next to her, trying to stay strong. I'll pick up more shifts. We'll figure it out. Timmy says it's because of the stress from all this, she said, her voice barely audible. He says that if you hadn't pushed for charges, I wouldn't have missed so much work. I bit back my initial response, the anger bubbling up inside me. Mom, that's not fair. I didn't cause this situation. She sighed, her shoulders slumping. I know. I'm tired, Adam. So tired. That night, I heard Timmy on the phone in his room. His voice was animated, almost excited. When I passed his door on the way to the bathroom, he quickly ended the call. "Who was that?" I asked, leaning against the doorframe. "Just Kyle," he said, his face a mask of innocence. "We're working on a project together." I didn't believe him, but I was too exhausted to press the issue. The morning of the hearing, I woke up early. Mom was already in the kitchen making pancakes, Timmy's favorite. He sat at the table in a button-up shirt and khakis, looking like the picture-perfect innocent teenager. "Morning," I said, pouring myself some coffee. Mom gave me a tight smile. "Mr. Thompson said we should be at the courthouse by 9 o'clock. I nodded. "I'll drive separately. I have work after." Timmy looked up, his fork paused midway to his mouth. "You're not coming to support me?" The audacity of his question almost made me laugh. "I'm testifying, Timmy, for Isabella." His eyes hardened for a split second before he composed himself. "Right, of course you are." At the courthouse, I saw Isabella and her parents sitting on a bench outside the hearing room. She looked up as I approached, and I gave her what I hoped was a reassuring smile. "How are you doing?" I asked, noticing how she was twisting a silver ring around her finger. "Nervous," she admitted, "but I'm ready." Inside, the hearing room was smaller than I expected. Timmy sat with his lawyer, looking appropriately somber. Mom sat directly behind him, her back rigid with tension. The judge, an older woman named Judge Harper, called the hearing to order. The prosecutor presented the case against Timmy, showing the text messages, the torn clothes, and calling Isabella to testify. Isabella's voice shook at first, but grew stronger as she described what happened. She recounted how Timmy had invited her over, how he had seemed so pleasant until they were alone, how he had suddenly changed and attacked her. Timmy's lawyer cross-examined her, suggesting that she had misinterpreted Timmy's actions, that they were just fooling around and things had gotten out of hand. Isabella held firm, her voice steady despite the tears streaming down her face. When it was my turn to testify, I described finding Isabella in Timmy's room, her clothes torn, fear in her eyes. I talked about the pattern of behavior I had observed over the years, the bird, the incident at the pool, the therapist's warnings. Mr. Thompson tried to paint me as resentful, suggesting I was jealous of Timmy and wanted to get him into trouble. I stayed calm, sticking to the facts, though my hands shook beneath the table. The most surprising testimony came from Timmy's former therapist, Dr. Rivera. She described how Timmy had initially seemed responsive to therapy, but eventually realized he was simply telling her what she wanted to hear. "In my professional opinion," she said, "Timothy shows concerning signs of conduct disorder with callous and unemotional traits. He understands right from wrong intellectually, but lacks the emotional capacity to care about the harm he causes others." When Timmy took the stand, he was the picture of remorse. His voice cracked as he described how much he liked Isabella, how they had been kissing, and how things had gotten out of hand. "I made a mistake," he said, looking directly at the judge with tears in his eyes. "I've learned my lesson. I just want to make things right." It was a masterful performance. If I hadn't known better, I might have believed him myself. After all the testimony, Judge Harper called a recess to consider her decision. We all filed out into the hallway. Mom talked to Mr. Thompson while I found a quiet corner to collect my thoughts. A few minutes later, Isabella approached me. "Do you think the judge believed him?" she asked quietly. "I don't know," I admitted. "He's very convincing," she nodded, looking down at her hands. "Even knowing what he did, part of me still wants to believe him when he looks at me like that. Is that crazy?" "No," I said. "That's exactly why he's dangerous." When the judge called us back in, the room was tense with anticipation. Judge Harper looked at Timmy for a long moment before speaking. "Timothy," she said, "I've considered all the testimony and evidence in this case. While I acknowledge your youth and the potential for rehabilitation, I cannot ignore the seriousness of your actions or the concerning pattern of behavior described by multiple witnesses." She found him responsible for the charges and ordered him to be placed on probation for 2 years. This included mandatory therapy, community service, and no contact with Isabella. She also recommended a psychological evaluation to determine if more intensive intervention was needed. Isabella looked relieved, though her parents seemed disappointed it wasn't more severe. As we left the courthouse, Timmy walked ahead with Mom and Mr. Thompson. I stayed away from them, not wanting to deal with them right now. Isabella's dad approached me. "Thank you for your testimony. It couldn't have been easy to fight against your brother." "It wasn't," I admitted. "But it was the right thing to do." That night, dinner was silent. Mom picked at her food while Timmy ate normally, as if nothing had happened. After dinner, he disappeared into his room without helping clean up. As I stood at the sink, scrubbing dishes, Mom leaned against the counter, her voice heavy. "The psychologist wants to see him tomorrow." I nodded, keeping my eyes on the soapy water. "That's terrific. Maybe they can help him," she sighed, but the hope in her words felt fragile, like it might shatter at any moment. "I just don't understand how we got here." Later, as I drifted toward sleep, my phone buzzed. The text was from an unknown number, but the words sent a chill through me. "You think this is over? It's just beginning. Sleep tight, big brother." I stared at the screen, my heart pounding. I knew it was Timmy, though I couldn't prove it. The next morning, Timmy was gone before I woke up. Mom said she'd taken him to his appointment and then to school, where he'd been allowed back on probation. I spent the day searching for a second job. The stack of bills on the counter seemed to grow taller each day, a constant reminder of how desperate things had become. Then came the call from Isabella, her voice tight with panic. "Adam, something weird is happening. People at school are saying I made everything up about Timmy." "What? Who's saying that?" I sat up, my anger rising. "Everyone. There are posts on social media. Someone even made a fake account in my name, posting things that make it look like I lied." My blood boiled. "It's Timmy or his friends. Can you screenshot everything and send it to me?" I already did. I sent it to Detective Mario, too. After we hung up, I checked my own social media. The smear campaign was in full swing. Posts about Isabella being a liar, about me being obsessed with her, flooded my feed. The rumors spread like wildfire, fueled by the popular kids. It was working. That night, I heard Timmy on the phone, laughing. I pressed my ear to his door, recording his voice as he bragged, "By next week, everyone will think Isabella is the psycho, not me." I sent the recording to Detective Mario and Isabella. It wasn't much, but it was something. By the end of the week, Isabella stopped coming to school. Her locker was vandalized, her social media flooded with hate. My own reputation crumbled. Former friends avoided me. Someone slashed my tires. Anonymous accounts spread lies about me. Timmy, meanwhile, thrived. His friends rallied around him. Teachers pitied him. He was the victim now. One afternoon, I came home to find Mom at the kitchen table, buried in papers. "What's all that?" I asked, dropping my backpack. "Bills," she said flatly. "Lawyer fees, psychologist appointments, and now the school says Timmy might need a special behavioral program. It's money we don't have." I sat across from her. "I got a second job at a movie theater. It should help." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "You shouldn't have to do this, Adam. You're only 21. You should be focusing on college, not working yourself to death for us." "It's fine, Mom," I said, though my shoulders ached from double shifts, and my grades were slipping. She looked at me, her expression shifting, like she was seeing me for the first time. "I spoke with Dr. Winters today. He asked if Timmy had always been so good at getting people to do what he wants." I waited, a knot forming in my stomach. "And I realized he has," she whispered. "Even as a little boy, he could charm his way out of anything, make people feel special when he wanted something." Her voice broke. What kind of mother doesn't see what her child is? I reached across the table and took her hand. "You worked non-stop. You trusted me to help, and I failed too." She squeezed my hand. "No, Adam, you tried. You've always tried." That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about what Mom had said. It wasn't just the big incidents. It was a lifetime of small manipulations that seemed harmless at the time. I got up, opened my laptop, and started typing. Every incident, every warning sign, the bird, the pool, the therapist's warnings, Isabella, the social media campaign. By morning, I had 12 pages of notes, a record of truth against the lies. At breakfast, Timmy chattered about a rugby match he'd been invited to. Coach said I might rejoin the team next semester if my probation officer gives the okay. He paused, then added, "Oh, and I need $20 for the movies tonight." "I don't have extra cash right now, Timmy," Mom said, her voice firm. His face darkened for a moment before he recovered. "But you said I could go." "It's fine, Mom," I interrupted, pulling a 20 from my wallet. "Here." Timmy grinned, snatching the bill. "Thanks, bro. You're the real deal." After he left, Mom frowned. "Why did you do that? That's enabling him." "I know," I said, "but I'm working on something." Later, I met Isabella at a coffee shop. She looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes. "I've been thinking about all this," she said. "The social media stuff, the harassment. It's not just about me, is it?" "What do you mean?" "I think Timmy has done this before, made someone else a target." She showed me screenshots of conversations with other girls. Their stories were disturbingly similar. The truth was becoming clearer, but so was the cost of uncovering it. Timmy was a master of charm, until he didn't get what he wanted. Then his cruelty knew no bounds. He used his social network as a weapon, isolating and harassing anyone who dared to cross him. Fear kept them silent. "But they're willing to speak now," Isabella said, her voice trembling yet resolute. "If it helps stop him." I handed her the document, a compilation of everything I could remember. The warning signs, the incidents, the manipulative patterns. She flipped through it, her face growing more troubled with each page. "This is worse than I thought," she whispered, her voice heavy with dread. "I know," I replied, my throat tight. "The courts made their decision. The school doesn't care as long as he's not causing trouble on campus." Isabella fell silent, her eyes locked on the pages. Then, with quiet determination, she said, "What if we don't go through official channels? What if we just tell everyone the truth?" I hesitated. "What do you mean?" "Social media works both ways," she continued, her resolve growing. "If Timmy can use it to spread lies, we can use it to spread the truth." Her words hit me like a jolt of electricity. We could create a document, an unflinching account of his actions, supported by evidence, my observations, Isabella's story, testimonies from other girls, and even screenshots of his manipulative messages. "It's risky," I warned, my voice barely steady. "Timmy's friends might retaliate." Isabella's jaw tightened. "I'm already an outcast. What more can they do to me?" Over the next week, we worked tirelessly, gathering evidence and testimonies. 5 more girls came forward, their stories painting a devastating picture. 2 of Timmy's former friends shared screenshots of group chats where he bragged about manipulating people. Even his first therapist, Dr. Rivera, provided a statement, carefully detailing the signs of manipulation she had observed in him as a child. The night before we planned to release the document, I sat alone in my room, staring at my laptop screen. My finger hovered over the send button. Was I really about to do this? To expose my own brother? Was it the right thing to do? I thought of Isabella, too afraid to go to school. I thought of the young girl in the pool, terrified and ashamed. I thought of the dead bird, its lifeless body a chilling reminder of Timmy's cruelty. I hit send. The document went out to every student, teacher, and administrator in our school. I also sent it to Timmy's probation officer, his psychologist, and Detective Mario. Then, I waited. My phone buzzed incessantly with notifications. The document spread like wildfire. People were sharing it, commenting on it, and reaching out to Isabella and the other girls, offering support. Timmy wasn't at breakfast the next morning. He left early for a study group, Mom said, her voice unconvincing. I knew better. Timmy was scrambling to contain the damage, but it was too late. At school, the atmosphere was electric. Whispers followed me down the hall. Some people looked at me with sympathy, others with skepticism, but no one ignored what was happening. Isabella texted me during third period. It's working, people are listening. By lunch, Timmy's carefully constructed social network was in ruins. His closest friends distanced themselves, unwilling to be associated with what was now being called Timmy's pattern. The girls who came forward were surrounded by supportive classmates, their bravery inspiring others to speak out. I didn't see Timmy all day, but I knew he'd be waiting for me at home. As I pulled into the driveway, I saw him sitting on the front steps, his expression a mask of cold fury. You think you've won? He said, his voice eerily calm. But you have no idea what you've done. I told the truth, Timmy, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. He laughed, a hollow, chilling sound. The truth? No one cares about the truth. They care about what's entertaining, what makes them feel superior. And right now, that's watching me fall. You did this to yourself, I said, moving past him toward the door. He grabbed my arm, his grip tight. This isn't over. You think you know me? You have no idea what I'm capable of. I pulled away, meeting his gaze. Actually, I do. That's the point. Inside, Mom was sitting at the kitchen table, my laptop open in front of her. She looked up as I entered, her eyes red-rimmed but resolute. You wrote this? She asked, gesturing to the screen where the document was displayed. I nodded. Isabella helped, and some others. Why didn't you tell me? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Would you have let me stop you? I hesitated. Probably not. She closed the laptop, her hands trembling slightly. Timmy's probation officer called. So did his psychologist. They want to meet tomorrow. I'm sorry, Mom, I said, my voice heavy with regret. She shook her head. Don't be. I've been in denial for too long. That night, Timmy didn't come home for dinner. Mom called his friends, but no one had seen him. We were about to call the police when he finally walked in, reeking of cigarettes and defiance. Where have you been? Mom demanded, rising from the couch. Out, he said flatly, avoiding her gaze. We were worried, she said, her voice trembling. He laughed, a brittle, bitter sound. No, you weren't. You were worried about what I might do, not about me. Mom flinched, but she didn't back down. That's not true, Timmy. I love you. Whatever, he muttered, heading for the stairs. I'm going to bed. The next morning, Mom took Timmy to meet with his probation officer and psychologist. I stayed home, too exhausted to face another day of whispers and stares at school. Around noon, my phone rang. It was Detective Mario. Adam, I've reviewed the document you shared, she said, her tone grave. This is concerning material. I've spoken with the district attorney, and they're considering whether additional charges are warranted based on the updated testimony. What does that mean for Timmy? I asked, pacing the living room. It's too early to say, she replied. But his current probation terms will likely be reevaluated, possibly with more restrictive conditions. After I hung up, I sank onto the couch, feeling strangely empty. This was what I had wanted, for people to see the truth about Timmy, for him to face the consequences. So why didn't it feel like a victory? Mom and Timmy returned later that afternoon. Mom looked drained but resolute, a new determination in her step. Timmy wouldn't look at either of us. Get to your room, Timmy, Mom said quietly. I need to talk to Adam. After he trudged upstairs, Mom sat beside me on the couch. They're recommending residential treatment, she said, her voice steady but tinged with sadness. A facility that specializes in adolescents with conduct disorders. Minimum 6 months, possibly longer. I nodded slowly. It's for the best. He needs real help, Mom. I know, she said, taking a deep breath. I've agreed to it. He's being admitted tomorrow. I looked at her, searching her face for any sign of doubt. How did he take it? She sighed, her expression pained. Not well. He tried to manipulate the situation, but Dr. Winters saw through it. She said your document helped them understand what they're dealing with. I nodded, feeling a strange mix of relief and sorrow. Maybe this was the beginning of something better, not just for us, but for Timmy too. Timmy was treated at a facility that felt more like a boarding school than a hospital, with its green lawns and brick buildings. But the drive there was anything but pleasant. Timmy sat silent, staring blankly out the window. As we walked him to the intake area, he finally broke his silence. "This won't change anything, you know," he said quietly. "You can't fix me." Mom squeezed his shoulder. "This isn't about fixing you, Timmy. It's about helping you learn to live in the world without hurting people." He shrugged off her hand. "Whatever helps you sleep at night." After he was checked in, Mom and I stood in the parking lot, emotionally drained. "Did we do the right thing?" she asked, hugging herself against the chill. "I think so," I said. "He needs more help than we can give him." On the drive home, Mom reached over and squeezed my hand. "Thank you, Adam, for being brave enough to do what I couldn't." Over the next few months, things slowly improved. Isabella returned to school, surrounded by supportive friends. The harassment stopped as Timmy's influence faded. The girls who came forward formed a support group that met weekly. Mom found another job that paid better and had more regular hours. I cut back to one job and started taking classes at community college. We visited Timmy every weekend. Sometimes the visits went well. He talked about his therapy, the books he was reading, and the activities they did. Other times he was cold and distant, refusing to engage. 4 months into his stay, Timmy asked to speak with me alone during a visit. "You ruined everything," he said once Mom left the room. "Your life was built on hurting people," I replied. "That's not perfect, Timmy. That's sad." He studied me for a long time. "You really believe in that, don't you? That what you did was right?" "Yes, I do." He nodded slowly. "Interesting. The therapists keep saying the same thing. Hurting people isn't the way to get what I want. There are better ways. Do you believe them?" "I don't know," he said, shrugging. "But I'm thinking it might be worth trying their way. It seems to work for you." It wasn't an epiphany or a breakthrough, just a small crack in the wall he'd built around himself. But there was something, a tiny glimmer of possibility. 6 months became 8, then 10. Timmy's progress was slow but steady. The residential program extended his stay, and Mom agreed, seeing the benefit of the structured environment and consistent therapy. By the time he was cleared to come home, almost a year had passed. He was different, quieter, more thoughtful, less quick to charm. I didn't fully trust the change, but I wanted to believe it was real. The night before he came home, Mom and I sat on the porch swing, watching the sunset. "Are you nervous?" she asked hesitantly. "Are you?" She nodded. "But I'm also hopeful. The therapists say he's making real progress." "I guess we'll see." She put her arm around me. "Whatever happens, we'll face it together this time. No more secrets. No more handling everything on your own." "Deal," I said, leaning into her embrace. The weight on my shoulders was lighter than it had been in years. I don't know what the future holds for Timmy. Maybe the treatment worked, and he'll learn to live without manipulating and hurting others. Maybe he'll just get better at hiding it. Either way, I know now that staying silent only allows damage to spread, like poison seeping into groundwater. Sometimes doing the right thing feels terrible. Sometimes it costs you more than you thought you could bear. But in the end, the truth is all we have.